Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. It looks like we still have a few people joining us, so we'll get started in just a couple of minutes. Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Vasquez, and I'm the Solutions Architect for our security and data center practices at Accudata Systems. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to our webinar, Next Generation Security Strategies. Today's presentation is our final webinar in our three-part threat defense webinar series with Forcepoint. The goal of this series is to arm you with knowledge and best practices to take your threat defense strategy to the next level. So Accudata has been on the forefront of technology innovation since we were founded in 1982. Since that time, we've invested heavily in emerging technologies that we see as transformative to our customers' way of doing business. Over the past 30 years, we've built a team of highly skilled local consultants who partner with our clients to improve their business through IT. For nearly 2 decades, we've invested heavily in our cybersecurity expertise and today lead the market as a top advisor on cyber threat prevention, detection, and remediation. One of the ways we've been able to grow that expertise is through our partners, like Forcepoint, who stay on the leading edge and equip our clients with the tools they need to protect their business. So at this time, I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Mark Padovani, Forcepoint Director of Product Management. Mark has over 20 years of experience in security, cloud services, and IT products. He also has experience leading management teams in data center solutions, services, software, and enterprise systems groups. We are glad to have him with us today to share his expertise. So without further delay, again, I want to thank you for your time and introduce Mark Padovani.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you, everybody, for attending today's session. I'm going to talk today about some of the challenges that businesses face when working with the cloud and looking for security solutions to deploy in the cloud. Today, business is all about safely connecting users to data. People are constantly on the go, and their data is located in many different places and many different solutions, in cloud services, on devices, email, transport. Users are on the go, and then the complexity of the business has changed dramatically with the use of contractors and collaborations between different businesses. When we look at where it started 20 years ago, there were no licenses and no passwords. Systems were one-on-one working, and there was sneaker nets with floppy disks for moving data. If we move forward a little bit, networks were also simpler. You were connected to everything in an office. Data, all applications were deployed in an office, and there was very limited connectivity. When we look at where we are today, we are constantly faced with new threats. Everything is connected wirelessly, and there are new exposures that are availed itself through open source codes, and just the general access. Now you can be at a hotspot and suffer the threat of a man-in-the-middle attack, and users are constantly challenged with phishing attacks and new threats that impact them on a daily basis. When we look at application deployment, applications are distributed globally. And on public cloud services, it was only in 2006 when Amazon launched its public cloud service. And in fact, the virtualization architecture for the x86 were introduced that really spurred a lot of the innovation growth, where people started consolidating applications into the private cloud onto their own environments, and then looking at distributing clouds into more public spaces like Amazon. People are looking for productivity challenges and advantages with moving to mobile solutions. Constantly, users are wanting to be on the go. People want to have the flexibility to be able to work from home, or people have to go on the road for business reasons. Access to data and giving users the flexibility drives tremendous productivity advantages. It also improves the ability to make decisions quickly and resolve issues. But with that mobility comes incredible risks to security issues and also the threat of data breaches, and also the ability to track users and to track data to ensure that data, confidential and highly secure business assets are protected and aren't exfiltrated and lost. When you're looking at cloud security, there are three key areas to consider when you're choosing solutions in SaaS. One, global coverage and availability. It is important to reduce the latency that you have and ensure that you can remain productive by having access to secure solutions globally wherever you are, and also to cover your businesses. Again, when it's not only just about a single business or a large global operation, but you're working with contractors and suppliers around the world, and you want to ensure that as you're working with those vendors, that security solutions that are deployed are providing adequate coverage wherever you are. And availability is key. If you're taken out, if the service is taken out, then either you lose the ability to access the internet if you're an inline proxy, or you have degradation dramatically. You're not able to get things processed, or you may not have the security coverage that you need. The next consideration is the operational security of the SaaS service that's being deployed and how transparent their operations are. It's very important to ensure that you're not in SaaS is not operated in a shared environment, and that there's strict policies that control the access to the data so that your data is not open and exposed to everybody. And you want to ensure that the service operation that's providing the security is completely transparent, and you know exactly what's going on with how your data is handled. And finally, performance. Latency is important, and there are applications that are so integrated with web services that are running on the client that any amount of latency will cause dramatic performance detriment to those applications, and may also interrupt those applications from working at all. If we look at a global infrastructure, it is important that there's coverage in key areas. Generally, if you're covered in a certain region, you'll have adequate coverage and reduced latency. you obviously don't want to backhaul traffic all the way from one side of the earth to one location. And so it's important that a SaaS service has adequate coverage globally. There are some regulatory and operational risks when operating in Russia and also through the China firewall and additional nations that have issues. When looking at a SaaS service, it's important to look at the type of fault tolerance they have. Are they going through another intermediary for a bandwidth, or are they directly connected to the internet backbone? And are their systems redundant, or are they just have a single point of failure in their operations? If we look at some considerations, an important aspect of this is this past week there were storms in Sydney, Australia, that took out Google and other services. The Forcepoint cloud, because of its true fault tolerance and redundant connections, redundant power grid connections, was able to remain in full operation during that time frame. It is these types of situations that come into play that can that can cause disruptions. And if you have disruptions in operations, then your traffic is routed through another data center, which can yield some latency issues. Another thing to consider when you're looking at SaaS providers is, are they tied into data center peering exchanges? Peering exchanges enable Tier 1 vendors to be able to access directly to the SaaS services. That means that they have a direct connection with SaaS services, which reduces latency and improves the performance overall. The other benefit is not only to SaaS applications, but also ISPs. This allows you to establish direct connections between your branch offices and the service providers directly by establishing a direct link and not having your traffic over the shared internet. When looking at secure operations, it's important to see what type of certifications that are applied to that SaaS provider. What I show here are 3 different layers of certifications. People may be familiar with ISO 27001. There's the CSA STAR certification and FedRAMP. They each have secure controls, and primarily what they do is they provide a validation that there's everything from physical secure access all the way through process controls, limiting access, full audit and logging of access to systems and to user data. The most stringent is FedRAMP, and that's applied for the U.S. federal government, but it's being recognized globally due to its stringent nature of controls. It's important when you see a certification that you check very clearly for what it covers. Does it cover one aspect of an operation, or does it cover the complete operation? It's possible that one aspect coverage is good enough, but in cases, what it may not do is actually cover where your data flow is flowing through the operations, and that's the most important part. Outside of the 3 certifications highlighted on the left, the other 2 that are in play are the ISO 27018, which covers personal data, and ISO 27017, which is for cloud security, and that's due to be ratified. Another layer to consider is how role-based access, what type of flexibility you have in controlling who gets access to what. And this is something that's critical for you to implement inside your own organizations as well. But role-based access, it operates on the notion of a least privilege principle. Only give access to users to certain aspects of function that they only need. This ensures that you don't expose assets where they don't need to be exposed, or you don't give access to systems that don't need access. And that would entail, if some rogue element got involved, then you don't want to have some general system have broad access to every information source in a company. Using role-based access also makes it very easy to change users, and by just assigning the role, if you have a limited set of roles, you can limit the number of resources that people are access to, and it's very easy to switch user from one role to another. Another consideration as you're working out deployment architectures for SaaS for your own networks as well as for SaaS is to identify rings of data access. You may just determine that there's highly confidential information that needs to be retained in a local network or in a very private network inside that local network, and then have information that is going to be transmitted outside in sort of a DMZ zone so that you create a buffer between the public internet and your private network. It's important to factor these considerations on where you place data and access controls to users. As we see at Forcepoint, we see that the world is very much a hybrid place, hybrid deployment, and people have assets that are both on-premise and deployed into the public domain. When looking at transparency, transparency is about getting status checks on the cloud at every point. At Forcepoint, we provide full transparency into the status of every single location of every single data center and all the services. We are about to deploy proactive notification through email so that users don't have to look to a status page for understanding what the state of each of the different data centers and service operations are running. But this type of transparency can give you confidence in knowing you're getting true communication of incidents and issues that may arise to help you do your job and being able to troubleshoot and identify issues that factor out the SaaS, and they may identify something that's within your own network. With regards to addressing issues that are possibly within your own network, one of the most difficult problems with troubleshooting cloud-based access is what's going on not at the SaaS provider, but the connection between your users and the cloud. And at Forcepoint, what we've done is deployed these types of troubleshooting tools that allow you to go through and click on the client system so that your users can click on the link that's provided in the Forcepoint tools to be able to provide information in real time that avoids the complex problem of having to do packet captures and do more mundane, highly technical deployments. Considerations when you're looking at cloud options is the flexibility and options to be able to support different environments. You're looking to connect branch offices, you have mobile devices, even unmanaged devices, and you have roaming users. When looking at options for deploying those environments, it's important to ensure that from a security standpoint that you have the right endpoints that can ensure that that users cannot evade, or that even malware that gets on the system could block or evade any endpoint to prevent security or access controls on the system. The other types of connections you want to look at is to see if edge devices, firewalls, routers can have different link options for connecting into the SaaS security services. And then there's also the notion of a cloud-attached device. Now we see people that deploy in hybrid modes where they have proxy enforcement and data security enforcement solutions that are deployed on-premise. But there are people that want to move fully to the cloud. Now, sometimes when you move to the cloud, branch offices may have bandwidth constraint issues. There may also be localization issues. And localization issues are where users or a branch office is in a country that's not serviced by a full proxy provider. And what a cloud-attached device can provide you, and with Forcepoint, this is the I-Series device, is it can provide full local enforcement but be fully cloud managed. And what this benefit allows you to do is deploy a solution that can be set up, that can be plugged in by anybody with very, very limited IT experience. And this, all the logging and all the management can be centralized through the Forcepoint cloud. So as you're looking at your architecture, it's important to consider not only the type of users that you have in the environment, how many are going to be telecommuting, how many are going to be roaming from that branch office. You also want to look at how many unmanaged devices are you looking to set up a guest network. All these factors go into consideration. And then as you look at a global deployment, you want to look at where your coverage needs to be, in which countries, and what does your service provider provide you with regards to options for those different countries. When looking, I'm going to drill down now into different types of endpoints and highlight some revolutionary changes that we've introduced at Forcepoint to improve the user experience overall with security. Today, the typical option for an endpoint is to do full proxy enforcement. And what this means is all the traffic for web traffic is forced through the proxy in the cloud. And then the cloud ensures that content that's acceptable, it passes back into the client, and if not, the traffic is stopped. There are obvious issues with this. You run into latency by having all the traffic flow back into it, and there are some application conflicts that run in place. We look at a different solution is what we're calling a direct connect technology. And what this does is allows the laptop to have a direct link with the website. Now, obviously, that enables some tremendous benefits with regards to performance. You're not having to worry about connections. You also avoid localization issues because the egress IP of the laptop is seen by the web service that you're trying to access. In this scenario, the disposition request is still made through the cloud. So the endpoint actually has full control, ensuring that the content may or may not be accessed by the user. Depending on the response, a block, allow, or scan response is sent back. So the user is identified. All the HTTP, HTTPS requests are disposition request up into the cloud, and then enforcement is applied. If the content is returned, then it's accepted. If it's blocked, the content is flushed from the cache. In the case where there is an issue, if the content is unknown, the content is uploaded to be scanned for further processing, and then either a block or allow is proceeded. The tremendous benefits from here are obviously greater performance without sacrificing security. When looking at a security architecture, it's important to ensure that you have full coverage. Web security as well as email provide different functions, as well as having a full DLP solution as well. All these complement each other and help to paint a picture of the different types of threats that your users encounter. And the endpoint DLP provides the most effective solution for ensuring that all types of data access, breaches, and protections to valuable company assets are provided. And it should go without saying that a firewall, having proper firewall protection at your premise, not only ensures that you have better performance, but you're actually protected against intrusion issues. In closing, looking at the Forcepoint solution, we're backed by the Threat Seeker Intelligence Cloud. We have a globally distributed DCs, and this platform enables our customers to adequately defend against threats, detect all types of malicious aspects, and give you the analytics and the tools that can quickly surface the types of issues you need to address in order that you can defeat it. The full Cloud Trust program that we provide ensures that your users and your data are adequately protected against any breach. And performance is key. We are constantly looking at ensuring that you have the best performance, giving you both local, hybrid, and full cloud enablement. And with that, Alex, I'll pass it to you for any questions.
Thank you, Mark. At this time, we will begin our Q&A session. During the webinar, we received a number of questions, but we may have time to take more. So feel free to submit additional questions as the discussion continues. So, Mark, first question for you. What are best practices for protecting data in the cloud?
Well, for protecting data in the cloud, you should really look at similar practices that you have when we're protecting data on premise, and it's really through a multi-tiered architecture. You want to ensure that you have readily access to a local backup, because due to performance reasons, that'll be the fastest way to ensure it, and that can be done through many means, including using different RAID types and mirroring technologies. I consider that part of a sort of a nearline backup strategy. But you also want to ensure that you have an online backup, or a site-to-site backup to ensure that availability. It's important also to consider versioning, because due to CryptoLocker type threats that can impact systems, if you don't catch it in time and a backup occurs, then your backups can be infected. But with versioning, then you can ensure that you can go back to a prior version that is not encrypted. So it's critical with some of the threats that are out there, and some of the human factors, even with the accidental deletion, that versioning is a key component of your backup strategies.
Okay, great. Next question. How do I protect my data in the cloud from ransomware attacks?
Well, I think that's part of what I just discovered there. I think one of the best issues is there are two aspects: is human education. I think you've seen a lot of ransomware attacks. It's generally done through spear phishing or phishing attacks. An active phishing and technology and awareness programs are critical to implement, and then also combining that with a versioned backup will ensure that the data that you have is at least protected somewhere, and so that if the system becomes compromised, then you're able to recover that system and recover that data. Okay,
great. Here's another question. When does it not make sense to utilize cloud services?
Well, there are times when you have applications, a lot of businesses have not fully migrated to the cloud, and they have confidential information and data. There is from security regulations, there's information that you are going to retain on premise. There are custom apps that have been designed and operating inside your data center that it makes sense to have that enforcement type of web security done there. I think also the thing to understand is with regards to DLP enforcement, that if we're talking about security, it's across the gamut. It's not just web enforcement. Email enforcement can be done through the cloud pretty effectively. In fact, Forcepoint's implemented solutions to actually be hosted locally in Azure for those deploying Office 365 and Exchange. But there are times definitely when you're looking for a firewall, it's best that the firewall is implemented at the customers at the different locations. Because if you have applications that users have to VPN back into it, the last thing you want to do is go through the round robin of going through a cloud security service, VPNing it, and then inducing the latency to route that traffic back to on-premise. Then the other aspect that really can't be done effectively through the cloud is local enforcement of strong DLP and breach detection and protection through a proper DLP endpoint that's running on a client system. That can't be done remotely, and what that can do is identify in real time issues that are occurring on a client system and can be stopped right there on that platform. You're not going to, through a cloud, be able to control data exfiltrating from a laptop onto a phone or other USB key. Another aspect that we have with our threat protection solutions is providing support for Linux servers. A lot of Linux servers that are supporting e-commerce, and also a lot of valuable SaaS properties have support from our in-memory monitoring and protection solution. Again, that's another example of where local enforcement on the client, in this case a server that's running a critical operation for a business, cannot have a substitute for some type of enforcement remotely. And you need to be able to process that data locally, otherwise you won't be able to react in time.
Excellent. Here's another question. What questions should I be asking cloud service providers before considering to use their service or services?
You obviously an SLA, but it's important on the SLA. The SLA is a headline for a SaaS provider, and that really describes their availability. But the thing you want to really drill down into is, are there any caveats? Do they have caveats for scheduled maintenance? Your business is 24/7. It's not, you don't have scheduled maintenance. You have people, you need to respond to critical issues that come up in your business, and you need to be able to rely on a partner. And I'd go back into the presentation and highlight some of the things I talked about with regards to security. You want to ensure, one, that they are following great processes, that they're independently audited, and that's what the certification standard, and their whole operations are covered, not just one insignificant aspect of their operations. And then finally, how are their data centers set up? If you're getting security services and they're all hosted out of a shared public cloud, right there well, first of all, they probably wouldn't get certified because they don't have physical control of their equipment. But then they're also subject to intrusion, bad neighbor issues, which impact performance. You could get tapped and have data exfiltrated off of those systems in the shared data center. So those are all critical aspects to consider. But again, I don't want to interject one more thing. I'm sorry. Just when you're looking at especially if you're looking, that's in general for a SaaS. If you're looking at a security solutions provider, the one thing that we've seen over and over again is you see situations where a customer will choose one security component from one vendor, one security component from another vendor, and they never adequately pull it together. The Forcepoint advantage is really how we have these comprehensive suites of products, and from that we're able to pull information together and make it very easy to ascertain and identify threats in real time.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Here's the last question, and then we'll give everyone back about 10 minutes of their day. What are good practices for securing access to cloud management portals or GUIs to prevent unauthorized access that could lead to a compromise?
I'd have to go back to what I mentioned about role-based access. It's critical that, obviously you need to delegate the ability for people to administer, create policies, or have just some basic level information with regards to usage of a service. And it's important that your service enables you that flexibility and that control to provide what I called out as least privilege access, where only people that need to have a certain subset of information can just get that information and nothing else. So look at not only how you're administrating service, but also look at the different layers of information that you need in that service, and make sure that people have just a very focused access to just what they need. If you start exposing people to too much information, you obviously run the risk of exposing personal identifiable information. You then put your business at risk for different compliance issues. So it's very, very critical to consider that in your selection. But definitely a good role-based access and looking at the different roles and the different access levels is a good strategy to pursue.
Thank you, Mark. And thank you all for joining us this morning. You will receive an email with a link for additional resources, including our $100 American Express gift card winner. We hope you enjoyed our webinar this morning. As you continue to adopt cloud solutions as part of your business and IT strategies, keep Accudata in mind. We are the industry leader in security, and our experts are happy to start with a complimentary consultation. Feel free to email me directly at avasquez@accudatasystems.com. Have a great day, everyone.